I'm 23 now, but this happened when I was like 6 or 7. I've told a few people about it, and I know it sounds crazy, but my older brother was there with me and he remembers everything the exact same way. Like word for word. We even randomly bring it up sometimes just to make sure we're not losing it or making stuff up. We've called each other mid-convo with someone else like, "Yo, tell them what happened again." Anyway, here's what went down. Some quick context. I grew up in Hawaii, out in the country, way up in the mountains. At the time, it was just me, my older brother, who was 12 or 13, and my mom at home. My stepdad was out with our other brothers running errands or something, and my biological dad lived down the mountain like 45 minutes away. Me and my brother were chilling in our room playing video games. At some point we noticed it got dark, and the hallway light outside our door was off. We got a little spooked. I remember peeking out and seeing my mom's bedroom light on and her door open, but the rest of the house was pitch black. I think she told us earlier she was gonna take a bath. I don't fully remember, but somehow we knew she was in the bath. So we go to check on her. Her bedroom's empty, so we go knock on the bathroom door, no answer. We keep knocking, calling out, asking if she's okay. Still nothing. Eventually we just go in, and the tub is full of water, but she's not in there. No mom. Nothing else weird, just a full tub, empty room, and the rest of the house in total darkness. At this point we're both pretty freaked. My brother puts me on my mom's bed, and he starts calling out for her in the hallway. The way our house was set up, the hallway went past our rooms and off to the left toward the living room. He's calling out, nothing. So he comes back and starts trying to call her phone. No answer. Then the part that still messes me up. We heard a whisper, like clear as day, like someone literally leaned in and whispered right into our ears. It was so real it felt like my mom was sitting beside us whispering something secretly to each of us individually. The first thing we heard was,
"He's hiding."
I screamed. My brother immediately threw my mom's blanket over my head, hugged me tight, and told me to close my eyes. Then same voice, same whisper, but louder.
"He has no face."
We both lost it. My brother starts calling my stepdad like, "We can't find mom, weird stuff's happening, I don't know what's going on." He told us to stay put and said he was coming home. Then we called our bio dad too, because depending on where he was, he might get there faster. We just sat there in my mom's room for like 20 to 30 minutes. Nothing else happened, but we were terrified. Eventually my stepdad got home with our older brothers. They were in high school. We'd already told them what happened, so they immediately started tearing through the house, attic, closets, everything. My stepdad went toward the living room, and I don't remember exactly how he found her, but I remember hearing people talking and coming out to the living room. She was just sitting in the rocking chair. My stepdad was crouched in front of her, holding her hands, talking to her. I don't even remember what he was saying, but then suddenly she started laughing, like this wild, hysterical laugh. Not funny laughing, scary laughing, just non-stop for like a full minute. Then she jumped up out of nowhere, ran to her bathroom, and started throwing up. And what came out wasn't normal, it was black. Like pitch black. We were all just standing there like, what the actual hell is going on? After that she was fine, like totally normal. But the craziest part? She didn't remember any of it. She said the last thing she remembered was setting up her bath. Nothing after that. She still doesn't remember anything to this day. So yeah, that happened, and it still messes me up. That whispering part especially, it felt so real. And the words? He's hiding. He has no face. Just know. I'll never forget that. It had everything going for it to be just a regular weekend, or even the best one ever, but it wasn't. I was stuck at home with the flu, barely enough energy to get out of bed, which sucked because we'd been invited to watch a live taping of a TV show. My younger brother, Kaio, was super excited about being in the audience. One of those random game shows that pop up out of nowhere, full of games, prizes, and way too much yelling. Our neighbor, Mrs. Sonia, had been picked to take part in the show. She'd always been that sweet old lady everyone on the street loved. Kind funny, a little quirky, the kind of person who makes a neighborhood feel like home. When she got selected, we were all pumped. We were really close to her, so she invited us along. There were seats saved for me, my brother, my mom, and Mrs. Sonia's grandson, who would stay with my mom while she was on stage. He and Kaio were both 13. But I didn't go. The flu hit me so hard that even sitting up felt like a chore. My mom said she'd leave the TV on the right channel, so I could still feel like part of the experience. I laughed, thanked her, and sank into the couch under a pile of blankets, sipping tea that had already gone cold. The show was supposed to start at 8 sharp. While I waited, my mom kept texting me, asking how I was doing, and if I felt any better. She joked about feeling like a celebrity, walking through backstage with her fancy dress and makeup. It was kind of funny to picture. When the time came, the show kicked off. I shifted on the couch to get a better view. The host was charming, and Mrs. Sonia even more so. In the background, I spotted my mom and Kaio looking straight into the camera, not even trying to hide it. Everything was going as expected, your typical loud, cheesy variety show, with dramatic music, trivia questions, and weird but fun challenges. The twist was that contestants were split into 2 teams made up of total strangers. The whole idea was to see how well people could work together under pressure, competing for prizes like kitchen appliances or trips abroad. Mrs. Sonia was killing it. She nailed the questions with confidence and cracked the audience up with her off-the-cuff comments. At one point, the host, this overly tanned guy with teeth so white they looked fake, asked if any of the contestants had brought family. All excited, Sonia pointed to the crowd and proudly said her son was there, waving like a kid. The host, grinning like it was part of the script, invited him up on stage. The audience cheered. Her son came up, looking a little shy, and gave her a big hug. The music swelled, and the host made a joke about how much they looked alike. Everything felt totally normal until the camera cut out. The screen went black for a few seconds. When it came back, it wasn't the stage anymore. Now the feed showed security footage from inside the building, narrow hallways, dim rooms, concrete stairs. The screen was split into several little frames, each one showing a different corner of the place. At first, I was confused. I figured it might be part of the show. Some new game? A prank? But no one said anything. No voices. No explanation. In the center of the screen, one camera, slightly bigger than the rest, showed the stage. And what happened next is something that'll haunt me for the rest of my life. The host was on the floor, dead. Blood pouring from his head. People screamed. A figure in black, face covered with a scarf, came out from behind the big screen on stage and started shooting. The audience lost it. People screaming and panicking, pure chaos. I could feel the fear crawling into my skin, just like it must have crawled into theirs. I sprang off the couch and grabbed my phone. I kept trying to call my mom, but she wouldn't answer. So I started calling my brother, all while watching the host's dead body lying on the floor, right there in full view of the camera. More shots rang out. The shooter was shouting for everyone to stay on the ground. People were watching it, that horrifying thing playing out live on TV. My heart pounded harder with every second that passed without someone picking up. And then finally my brother answered. "Kaio! Kaio! Are you okay?" I yelled, panicked, desperately hoping it was all fake, part of the show, that the host and the others would suddenly get up and laugh. But my brother answered softly, breathing hard, fear heavy in his voice. "They're shooting everyone. Everyone." My heart almost stopped. I scanned the main audience feed, trying to find where he could be. There must have been 100 people in there, but I couldn't spot him. "Where are you?" I asked, desperate. "In the bathroom," he whispered. Thank God. He'd gone there before it all started. I could hear him crying quietly, and then he asked about our mom. "Mom, do you think they got her? She stayed out there." His words were full of fear and heartbreak, and I couldn't find her either, not in that mess of bodies and panic. The doors seemed locked. No one could get out of the main room where the show was happening. There were more bodies on the floor. My biggest fear was finding my mother's body among them. Another man appeared, also with a scarf over his face and dressed completely in black. Looking now, they were heavily armed, guns, knives, everything. They had everyone under control, forcing them into a circle. And now that I could see everyone together, I realized my mom was among them. She was still alive. But on the other hand, Mrs. Sonia, she didn't make it. Her already red hair was now soaked in even more red blood. Her body lay sprawled across the floor. One of the gunmen walked right over her, stepping on her without a second thought, like stepping on ants. He didn't even notice. I stayed on the line with my brother, trying to calm him down. I told him Mom was okay, and that I'd call the police. He needed to keep hiding. At that point, I'd forgotten I was even sick. Adrenaline was pumping through me. Through tears, my brother let out a quiet, "Okay." In the background, the camera was still showing everything. It was shaking now, like someone had knocked it over. For a few seconds, all I could see was the ceiling. But then, someone picked it up again. One of the men. He laughed. "All right, let's show this to everyone." The camera turned to the circle of hostages. It froze on my mother's face. My heart stopped. Still on the phone with my brother, I ran to the kitchen landline to call the police. I tried my best to stay calm, for his sake and mine. Luckily, someone picked up fast. 911, is your emergency related to the Blue Veil Network situation? The operator asked. I was surprised. They must have been getting tons of calls. It was a good sign. It meant help was already on the way. "Yes, please help us. My brother and mom are there. My mom's being held hostage, and my brother is hiding in the bathroom," I tried to say without stuttering. She told me what I'd been hoping to hear. They were already on their way, and doing everything they could. She asked me to turn off the TV, since the shooters were broadcasting the massacre live, and if the audience dropped, it might frustrate them. I hadn't expected that, but I couldn't turn it off. I needed to keep watching to see if my mom and brother were still okay. If I turned it off, my thoughts would eat me alive. I didn't know what I might do. She seemed to understand and let me keep it on. I dropped the phone and rushed back to the TV, trying to make sure Mom was still okay, while staying on the line with my brother. That's when I realized, almost frozen, that one of the shooters was no longer in the main room. He had left, probably hunting down anyone who had escaped. Something different happened. One of the cameras started moving. The shooter was using it while looking for victims. They really want to broadcast everything they can. I told my brother to lock the bathroom door quickly before he got there. "The door doesn't have a lock, just the stalls, but that won't help much," he said, his voice shaky and muffled, like fear was wearing him down, each word harder to get out. I could only think, frozen. Shit. I asked if there was anything he could use to block the bathroom door, but unfortunately he said no. The best he could do was hide inside one of the stalls. The shooter was switching from camera to camera, walking through the hallways, and now with his own point of view being streamed through the camera he was carrying. I didn't know the place, but I was sure he had to be near the bathroom. And I was right. "Listen, he's heading toward the bathroom. Don't make a sound, don't scream, don't move," I told him. And in that moment, I heard him trying to hold in his cries, agony taking over his body. All I could do was try to comfort him, and all he could do was pray. There was a loud thud, and shortly after a gunshot. Thankfully, The shooter ran off toward his partner in the main room. I'd never felt such relief, and my brother, it was like he'd just been born again. "He's gone," he ran to the main room, he told me, and we both felt better than ever. I checked the main camera. The shooter entered the room, and now there was another body on the floor. Apparently, one of the hostages tried to grab the man's gun. And well, it didn't go too well. They started yelling, saying they were running out of patience, and that they'd start shooting everyone in there. I'd never heard so many screams and cries of desperation. Everyone was begging for their lives, desperate, pleading over and over. They said they had families, but the shooters didn't care. They shot one of the hostages in the head. My brother let out a terrified little squeak. He'd heard the shot, and asked if Mom was okay. I reassured him and told him she was. But I also said they seemed to be out of patience. The police needed to get there, fast. Right when he said that, they started shooting at more people. They were yelling, "The cops are here, now what?" One of them shouted, and the other just said, "Just kill them. We're going down anyway." And then it all went off. I saw every shot, the fear draining from the faces of each person they hit in the head. They weren't letting anyone get out, just shooting one after another. And when they ran out of bullets, they pulled out knives and machetes. It was brutal. They were just hacking into people. Every one of them probably had a family waiting at home. In the middle of all that brutality, my mom broke down in tears, and that shattered me. It didn't feel real. I just wanted to wake up from that nightmare. That was all I could hope for. But before her turn came, the inevitable happened. The image froze, went gray for a second. Then the Blue Veil TV logo popped back on screen. The cameras were gone. Broadcast interrupted. I screamed. My brother asked what happened. I didn't have the courage to say our mom was probably dead. I just told him the feed had been cut. I couldn't just stand there and do nothing. I made a decision, grabbed my dad's gun, took his car, and drove straight to the station, keeping my brother on the line the whole way. It was over an hour away. I sped like crazy, ran red lights. I didn't care. I just wanted to get there. I just wanted my brother to still be alive. But the thoughts wouldn't stop. Please, please, let them not have found him. And then the call dropped. Dark thoughts flooded my mind. I tried to believe it was just his battery dying. But even before that, I'd noticed something was wrong. It was too quiet. I could only hear his voice, nothing in the background. Those 40 minutes were the longest of my life. When I got there, the building was surrounded by cars, police, and a crowd, maybe bystanders, maybe family of the victims. I rushed up to an officer and asked if they'd seen my brother. They said they were still searching the building for survivors, but had only found one. Thankfully, it was him. When I saw him, I pulled him into the tightest hug, his body shaking in my arms. I wiped away his tears with trembling hands, and thanked God he was still alive. No one else made it out, not even our mom. The police had already started locking down the scene, collecting evidence. But to us, nothing made sense anymore. My mind refused to accept that everything had changed that day, forever. I made myself a promise. I would protect Kaio with everything I had. He'd never go through anything like that again. Later, everything came out. The attack had been planned for a long time. What shocked me most was that 3 people were behind it. 2 were the shooters. The third, he worked security. He made sure it all went live. That's why the station didn't cut the feed earlier. And just knowing my brother could have been seen, if he had stepped out of the bathroom a few seconds earlier, that haunts me. Thank God he didn't, because he and I and thousands of others saw everything through those cameras. A live broadcast that would go down in history. When I was 6 years old, I had a friend who lived across the street, Cody. From what I remember, Cody was a weird kid. We never really talked much. Just occasionally, we would play together in his backyard in the woods. We lost touch in high school. He was just too quiet, too introverted. I would occasionally speak to him, but never for long. I consider myself better than the other kids at least. I never was the kid that called him names in the hallway or knocked his lunch tray out of his hands. After 11th grade, I never saw or heard of Cody again. Apparently, he moved away to some other state, never bothering to keep in contact with anyone apparently. I didn't know him very well, so I wasn't too butthurt about him not keeping in touch. I just went about my life as though we never met. Fast forward a couple years, I was 21 years old. After graduation, I started attending college out of state, completely having forgotten about Cody, as well as the town I grew up in. That all changed one night at a local bar near my college campus. I had been sitting on a bar stool, sipping my drink, dreading my upcoming tests, wanting to try and relax on a Sunday night. The bar was mostly empty. This was pretty usual here. Around this time, all that's really left are the bums and the washed people who were stumbling out of the bar. I checked the clock hanging on the wall, 2:59 a.m. I really should have been heading back to my dorm, but some part of me decided to stay a bit longer. Sure enough, a minute or so passed, and a man who looked around my age, if not a little younger, sat next to me at the bar. I couldn't quite place a finger on it, but I knew somehow I had met this man. And just as I suspected, he held his hand out to me and flashed a knowing grin. If it isn't David Pagan, long time no see. Just then it clicked, this was Cody Johnson. It took me a moment before I slowly reached my hand out to shake his hand. Didn't think I'd be seeing you again, especially after you left without a goodbye. Cody simply shrugged and pulled his hand back. Sorry about that. I just figured nobody really wanted to keep in touch. I paused and took a moment before I sighed and looked away as I spoke. Yeah, about that. Listen, man, nobody should have treated you the way that they did. It wasn't right, and you did nothing to deserve it. I still feel bad about not saying anything. Cody was silent before he clapped a hand on my shoulder. Let's not dwell on what we can't change. Nothing good will ever come of that, you know? He then flashed me this charming smile that had me grinning back at in return. We chatted for about half an hour before eventually Cody suggested we meet up behind the house he used to live in, just like old times, saying he'd bring a pack of beers. Of course I couldn't say no, and I agreed to meet up with him the next afternoon at his old house. The next day I attended my morning classes as usual. Then when I finished, I got into my car, turned on some Tom Jones and drove off. The drive felt shorter than it actually was, and I arrived at Cody's old house around 2:56 p.m. I could tell nobody lived in the house anymore, as the grass was overgrown and the windows had been boarded up. As I got out of my car, I glanced around and noticed that Cody hadn't parked his car anywhere, despite the fact that I wasn't early. In fact, I was a little late. I walked around the house anyway, deciding I would just wait for Cody at the spot. But all of a sudden I heard his voice call out from the woods. "Out here, David." I still couldn't get over how Cody didn't seem to have driven a car over here, but I just rationalized it as maybe Cody had parked down the street or something. So I walked into the woods behind the house, the same woods me and Cody would sometimes play in as kids. After a bit of walking, I heard Cody's voice call out again. "Over here." Closer now. I walked a bit farther into the woods. Then I stumbled out into an open area. I was pretty sure this was where Cody was, or at least really close to where I heard him. But as I called out his name, I heard nothing in reply. With a sigh, I walked forward a bit, looking around to see if I could see him. But what I saw was something terrifying. I crouched down to get a better look at it, and when I realized it, my heart dropped to my stomach. What was sticking out of the ground was a bone. I had watched enough movies and crime television to know that a bone shouldn't be just sticking out of the ground like that, and I made haste to call the police. Police arrived, and after digging up the area, sure enough, they had found human remains. My mind was a mixture of swirling thoughts, and a part of me had a sinking feeling of who those remains belonged to. But the rational part of me clung to denial like a lifeline. But the truth came out, and those remains belonged to none other than Cody Johnson. Apparently, he had been missing for years, the police believing that he probably had just run away, which was common for kids his age. But when they discovered Cody's remains behind his parents' old house, that obviously raised suspicions. The police tracked down Cody's parents, and they were found halfway across the country in Nevada. When questioned, the father demanded to speak with a lawyer present, but the mother sung like a canary. According to her, Cody's father, Gerald, had been nothing but an abusive prick. He had often beat her in front of Cody when he was just a child, and when he got older he started hitting him too, for years and 5 months prior. "I'm sick of this, Dad. I'm not sticking around anymore. I'm done with your bullshit," Cody yelled as he quickly packed his bags. His mother watched him do it. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she made no move to stop him. Down the hall, Gerald was cursing up a storm, drunk as usual. Cody grabbed his backpack and stormed out of his room and down the hall, about to head downstairs when stopped by his father. Gerald slurred out angrily as he stared down at Cody. "I am your father and you'll do as I f***ing say." Cody just scoffed and pushed past him to go downstairs. "I'm going to David's house across the street. You can't stop me." Next thing Cody knew, he felt a harsh force against his back, and he was falling, tumbling. He rolled and tumbled down the stairs till he reached the bottom head first, his neck snapping in an unnatural angle. To this day, I still think about the encounter with Cody in the bar, how I was too drunk to notice how the bartender had been staring at me in confusion and concern, and how Cody looked like he hadn't aged since high school. I don't consider myself a spiritual or religious man, but I know I wasn't drunk when I went into those woods, and that it was Cody's voice I had heard in those woods. All I know is that Cody would be properly buried somewhere, and that hopefully now he could be at peace, and his father get what's coming. Because if what I'm thinking is correct, he has a special place in the deepest pits of hell.